Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 827, July the... Well, I know it's not the 24th. I know that's not right. It's in July. I think it's the 3rd. July the 3rd, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wednesday. Of course, that's the day that I take out the trash and have me some chicken. Exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, so... in the last video, we were getting toward the end of the analysis I was doing on the recent Washington Post story on Misfid, Joseph Mifsud. And of course, as I was saying just to preface this before I pick up, the Washington Post writes this strange story about Joseph Mifsud. And what's strange about it, of course, is the timing of it, is that there's no real news, no reason to have written the story. There's nothing new in the story. The story, what it tries to do, it's very strange. It's if you've read it, there's no new news in it, and it's not taking any old facts and giving us some new insight into them, not at all. What the story seeks to do, for the most part, is throughout the story, it tries to debunk this idea that Mifsud is a Western intelligence agent. But throughout the story, they give contradictory little lines in there. To draw their own, I guess, the conclusion of their own story, to question that. Because they're trying to say, oh, there's a bunch of conspiracy theorists who say that Mifsud is a Western agent, and then they go through this story to try to debunk it. But throughout the story, as they're going through it, trying to debunk it, they'll keep throwing in, a sentence here, a sentence there from someone or some source, suggesting that, well, I guess maybe it's possible so and so says that Mifsud is a Western agent, and they throw in some details, but they never really get to the end of the story and reach any conclusion. They never really. If the idea was to debunk that Mifsud is a Western agent, they didn't do that. They make an attempt at doing that, but they never close the deal. They constantly leave the door open, because just as they make a statement, a paragraph, to try to make that argument, then they insert a sentence or two of something that would retract from that. And it leaves you at the end of the story going, well, is he or isn't he? What are you trying to say? And so the only conclusion you can draw from this is that they're trying to get out ahead of something, and the something is likely that Mifsud is a Western intelligence agent, because throughout the story, as they attempt to make this vague attempt at debunking that, they continue to throw in a sentence here or there that questions their own point that they're trying to make, leaving some doubt about their own point, about their own, reason for writing the article. So it's a very strange article, and anyone who's read it, you can see it's a very strange article. It's not your typical article, right? And it is the Washington Post, and of course we know the Washington Post is basically the mouthpiece for the CIA. I mean, the Washington Post is the CIA. They're the media branch of the CIA, and we know that goes all the way back to the Church Committee hearings. We know from back in the 1970s that in fact the CIA has admitted that they have people on the payroll at the Washington Post. Not just that, but they have people, literally CIA people, at the Washington Post at various levels, including upper management and everything else, editors and everything else. So the Washington Post is essentially a CIA newspaper for all practical purposes. Okay, so anyway, where we left off, so the next thing that we were talking about, the next paragraph I was getting into, was the Washington Post tries debunking Papaglopoulos' claim that Link Campus is a spy school. And they interview Vincenzo Scotty, and he gives the typical type of responses to the questions you'd expect from someone who's trying to cover something up. And he just lies, okay? Let's just be honest, he just lies. And Scotty says that they are not a spy school, not a government spy school, but for private industry, not governments. Oh, they're not a spy school. Well, I mean, we're not a spy school, for the government or intelligence agencies. No, we do spy training for private industry. Yeah, that's it, private industry, not government. When they have when all the people who do all the teaching and lecturing and all the people who come and go around Link University are all former government officials involved in intelligence or diplomats. I mean, I've read a lot about Link University. I've seen a lot of pictures. I've heard about a lot of the people who go there, the people who run the place. And I've never seen any executives from Dell or Apple or Google or anyone else at Link University. It's always politicians, government agents, diplomats and people like that. I don't see all these private people. And at this point, it appears that it is a place where the FBI, the CIA, and various officials send their people to get training. I'm not seeing all these private industry people there. I've never heard any of this. Maybe they do workshops for these people. Maybe they do some classes for these people. But I think, again, this was Vincenzo Scotty trying to dodge the issue. And I think, just based on the responses that I heard from him in the article, it just sounds like he's trying to cover something up. Sounds like he's lying. So I don't trust Vincenzo Scotty. And remember, it was Papaglopoulos that says it was Vincenzo Scotty that personally greeted him, shook his hand, and said, "Oh, let me introduce you to Mr. Masood." Masood. Okay, so then we have Stephen Rowe, again, back to Stephen Rowe. He says that Link University severed their ties with Masood after his name came out. And now we know that they helped hide him out. He's been living in a house a couple blocks down the street from Link campus in a property owned by the people who own Link campus. So why would Link University, and again, this is coming from Vincenzo Scotty, who's the guy who would have made this decision, and he was asked about this because Stephen Rowe is telling the Washington Post, yeah, right after Masood's name came out, Link University severed their ties with him. And then Scotty is asked about this, and he basically gives a kind of a politically worded statement, essentially confirming that, but doing it in a very kind of a political way, trying to talk around it again, kind of cover up. He's a fairly slick former politician. And so why would Link University want to sever their ties with Masood if, in fact, there's no problem with Masood? If Masood is not an agent of the government, he's not a secret agent, he wasn't working for the Russians, he wasn't working for anyone. I mean, certainly they wouldn't have a Russian agent working at Link, would they? But for some reason, when you look at the strange things going on around Masood, he's acting. It's just like OJ. When OJ, if you guys remember the OJ thing. I mean, when you grab a gun, jump in the back of your vehicle, and have your buddy drive you to the border, and you got a gun and like $20,000 in cash on you, and you're heading to the Mexican border, it gives the it looks pretty bad. You know what I mean? And that's how it is with Masood. When you look at the whole thing around Masood, it just looks bad. If there's nothing going on with Masood, if he did nothing, if he's not a spy, if he wasn't involved in anything, then why is he being hiding out? Why does Link campus sever their ties with him? Why is he only able to speak to Mr. Rowe? Why won't he go out and do a press conference and just clear his name? Why is he in hiding? Why is people from Link University, the people who own it, supporting him and putting him up? I mean, somebody's got to be paying the bills because he's obviously not out earning a living. Someone's supporting him. Way too much smoke and shadow around Masood for him to be, perfectly clean in this deal. There's definitely something going on with Mr. Masood, and I'm about 99% certain that he was not a Russian agent. He really doesn't. I don't think he's the type of guy that the Russians would be interested in as an agent, really. I he just doesn't seem like the type that the Russians would go after. He's too public of a person. He hangs around too many people in the West. He's too shady of a character. He's not all that connected, and he likes to talk. And that's the last thing in the world any intelligence agency wants to bring in to their organization, is one of those people who like to talk. And everyone who knows Masood says that he's a big talker. Likes to talk a lot about who he knows and what he knows and all this sort of thing. The last guy you'd want to bring in, to do intelligence work. So, again, a lot of things just not adding up in this Washington Post story. Then we have the Washington Post saying that Masood was not connected to the U.S. State Department, and that the event that he spoke at in February of 2017 in the District of Criminals was a private group that receives some State Department funding. Okay, so they're trying to debunk the fact that, again, this is what the Washington Post does in this story. They try to debunk all the things that people have come up with that make it look like he's a Western intelligence agent. And we know he was in the U.S. in February of 2017. That's when the FBI interviewed him, and the first time, at least. And he was in town as work with a group that's associated with the U.S. State Department. And now they're even admitting that is a group that receives State Department funding. And he was in the Capitol building. Masood was in the Capitol building. Now, if the CIA already has a record on him, and they've suspected, as we heard earlier, that he's a Russian intelligence agent, why are they allowing him? Why are they not saying something to someone in the State Department? Say, hey, this guy belongs to this group that you guys are funding, and he travels around giving these speeches and going to various places, including here in the U.S. He's actually comes into D.C. He's actually in the Capitol building. He's actually in the Capitol building. And we think he's a Russian spy. No. As far as the State Department is concerned, as far as we know, and as far as the State Department, from what we've learned from them, they don't know that he's a Russian spy. And so, and why would the CIA, if they had this information, why would they allow other agencies of the government to continue to have association with him, or even put him in a situation where he could be coming into Washington, D.C. and walking around in the Capitol? I mean, typically, when they suspect you're a Russian agent, they don't let you into the country. Or if they do let you in the country, they're watching you. And they certainly warn other departments of the government, and generally that word would be passed along, and whatever group he belongs to that's being funded by the State Department would probably, they would probably be told, hey, that guy there, there's something going on with that guy, so, please don't invite him and to give a speech here in D.C. We certainly don't want him walking around inside the Capitol because there's issues with this guy. But none of that happens. He's been doing this for years. He says, according to Papadopoulos' wife, she says that Masood, of course, claims he's a member of the Clinton Foundation, and she says that he knows Hillary Clinton personally, and at least on one occasion she knows for sure that he had dinner with her back in 2016. Also in the story, we get that the FBI questioned Masood in the lobby of his hotel in February of 2017. And they say that Masood made several inaccurate statements. Well, if he made several inaccurate statements, why was he not charged like everyone else? Papadopoulos got charged, as well as other people, for making false statements. Well, here they're saying that Masood made false statements to them. And why are they questioning him in the lobby of his hotel? It's not generally how it's done. It's not generally how it's done. This guy's suspected of being a Russian agent. It's not how this will be done. If he's if they suspect he's a Russian intelligence agent, the FBI is probably not just going to walk up to him, sit down, and start talking to him about, the fact that did he give Papadopoulos information. I mean, this is not something you would do in the lobby of a hotel. If anything, you would do it at the FBI, headquarters or somewhere, somewhere that's not like a hotel lobby. Let's put it that way. And in fact, if the FBI believes that someone like a Masood is a Russian intelligence agent, they're going to get with their counterparts in intelligence or counterintelligence, and they're probably not going to approach him directly through the FBI. That's probably going to be more of a covert thing. They're probably going to spy on him. They're probably going to tap his wires, you might say. They're going to put a tail on him. They're going to follow him. They're going to do a background check on him. They're going to find out everything. The FBI is going to get together with the CIA and say, okay, what do you know about this guy? He's got a file on this guy? And then, oh yeah, we got a file. We think this guy's a Russian agent. Well, here's what we know. They're going to get the information. They're not going to go up and question him as they did, because they're questioning him, and the FBI goes to him to question him as a witness against Papadopoulos. They're not approaching him like you'd approach a Russian spy who just got this information. And if he's the guy that gave Papadopoulos this information, and Papadopoulos told them that he was, they would certainly, again, they would want to start surveilling him. They wouldn't go up and blow their cover with him and let him know that they're watching him. They would want to find out exactly who he's communicating with. If this is the guy that gave Papadopoulos the stuff, and I'm an FBI intelligence or counterintelligence, I'm like, wow, and he's in town? I'm like, man, put a tail on him, put a wire on him. Let's find out who he's talking to. Let's look at his emails. Let's listen to his phone calls. Let's see who he meets with. Let's find out where he got this information. And then if you're going to try to find out whether or not he was the guy who gave Papadopoulos this stuff, and you most interestingly would not be Papadopoulos or even Misfit, where Misfit got such important information. I mean, this would be super top secret information. If the Russian government had blackmail material on a potential presidential candidate, I mean, that would be stuff that would be very, very, very top secret stuff. And anyone who would leak something like that probably wouldn't be around very long afterwards. But if they were, you would certainly, if they were, and that was the guy who was passing this information around, you would certainly want to find out who he's communicating with, to see if you can find out who would have given him that information. Who gave him that information? That's what you want to find out. What Papadopoulos knows is who cares? Papadopoulos doesn't know anything. It's Misfit who knows something. He's telling Papadopoulos that the Russians have Hillary Clinton's emails? Really? Well, he had to learn that from somebody, because he's certainly not a high-level Russian government or intelligence figure. He's a, guy from academia that travels around Europe, hangs around with a lot of Western intelligence and academia type people and diplomats. Who's this guy talking to? What Russians is he communicating with? He must have some very, very high-level Russian intelligence contacts to get this type of very, very, what would be super secret information. You would want to surveil this guy. This is the guy that you want to put the spies onto. This is the guys you want to put the FISA warrant on, the surveillance warrant on. None of this makes any damn sense. I'll tell you what. What this tells me is that it's whispered in somebody's ear over at the Washington Post, someone from the intelligence community, to go ahead and put the word out that it's possible that Misfit could have some ties to some Western intelligence people or something, or he could be like a double agent or something like that. This is the beginning of the rollout for their cover to cover for themselves on Misfit, and it may mean that sometime in the future, now maybe Barr or Durham or one of their people have interviewed Misfit, and the CIA, rogue elements of the CIA have gotten information about that, and they know that Misfit has come clean and told them that he was working for the CIA, Brennan, Italian intelligence, or someone, and they're trying to get out ahead of the story. That's the only thing that really makes any sense to me. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me, because the story doesn't come out and prove that he's a Russian agent. So why write the damn story? they can't really debunk this, what they call conspiracy theory, that he's a Western agent. They're trying to make that argument, but throughout the story, they're constantly slipping in little lines, that a few sentences here and there that would draw a question to that. So it's a little crazy, but my guess is, and we may not find out for months, but I think that ultimately what this tells me is that if I'm a betting man, I'm betting that someone at the CIA knows that Masood has now come clean and has probably let them know, yeah, he was working for some sort of intelligence, Western intelligence, he was involved, British intelligence or CIA or somebody, Italian intelligence, whatever, and that they're trying to get out ahead of the story. They want to be able to come out and say, oh, well, so when it comes out, they want to be able to come out and say, oh, well, that's not anything new. The Washington Post reported on that so-and-so a time ago. And they talked about the fact that he may be connected to Western intelligence. He may have been a double agent. Maybe they're going to try to run that game on us and say, oh, well, he was a double agent. Yeah, he was working for the Americans as a double agent. He was working for the Russians, but the Russians didn't know he was actually working for the Americans. You know, I mean, if they're going to try something. What a mess that they've gotten themselves into. I hope Barr and Durham are honest, if they do believe in equal justice under the law. And I know they're not stupid. I know they're not stupid. Question is, are they honest? We're going to find out. Okay, let's get to some of the breaking news over the last 24 hours. Let's see. We have John Ratcliffe going on Fox News saying that he just recently spoke with Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz, and that Horowitz is telling him that the investigative part of his investigation is basically over, and they're in the process now of writing up the report. It'll take 6 to 8 weeks for it to go through the process of the FBI and the CIA and the DOJ review it. According to Ratcliffe, Horowitz told him that about 20% of it is classified, so I'm not sure how much of that will be redacted or not, but it looks like the Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz report, it looks like it'll be coming out sometime at the end of August, maybe early September. Huh. Jeez. Not that I think it's going to be that consequential. I mean, again, Horowitz is the cleanup man. He's the janitor. His job is to come in and clean up the mess, to clean up the spill without drawing too much attention, without making too much noise, without disrupting too much. His job is just to quietly clean up the mess with as little damage as possible. That's his job. He is the cleanup man, the custodian. Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz is the custodian. Now, I do think that it is going to, because he's looking, this specifically what he's going to be reporting on is the FISA situation, the FISA court thing, deal. So I think that this is going to be what Barr is likely going to use to take things to the next level. Maybe this will motivate Lindsey Graham to have a few hearings. I don't know. It seems to be what he's waiting for. So we'll see. But I think I just want to get this IG report out. Just get it out. I'm sick of tired of hearing about it. It's not going to be terribly damning to anyone, and we know even if he recommended indictments for 100 people, we saw that not a single one of the criminal referrals that he made from the previous report, nothing was done about any of those. Well, we have the Penguin Jerry Nadler calling for Border Patrol heads to be prosecuted for child abuse. Huh, that's funny. Never said a damn word when Obama had those little kids locked up in cages, did he? Man, these people are hypocrites. We have John Solomon interviewing Oleg Deripaska. And in that interview, Deripaska says that he has recently hired, or his attorneys have recently hired, Christopher Steele to work on an unspecific proceeding. It has something to do with a legal battle that's going on in London. Okay, there you go. Biden, of course, is now down to 22%. 22%. He entered the race at 41. He's now down to 22. Just as I said, his numbers are only going one way, and there's still got. I'm telling you, he will be down into the low double digits after the next debate, and after the third debate, I think he's toast. I don't think he makes it till still September. I really don't. I don't think he makes it to the first. I'd be surprised if he's still around for the first primary. That's how bad things are, and he's got a Ukrainian problem. It's a big monkey on his back, getting bigger every day. So this New York Times columnist that many of you have heard about, this Bret Stephens, who wrote this article, and he was slammed for it by the other liberals the day after he wrote the article, talking about what a shit show that the Democratic debate was, the one that Biden was in, the second one, and he talked about what a disaster it was, and he took a lot of heat for it the next day, because he is a liberal columnist, part of the liberal New York crowd, but he wrote this derogatory article, and he took a lot of heat for it. This same writer, this Bret Stephens from the New York Times, is saying that as far as he's concerned, and he is covering the Democrats' primary for the New York Times, he says that if he believes that if Biden has one more bad debate like the one he just had, that he will be done. I pretty much agree with that. I don't know about totally done, but he'll be on his way to being done. On a second bad debate, but he can only have bad debates. I've been watching Joe Biden for a long time, and as I told you, this is Joe Biden. He's never had a good debate. I mean, it's not possible. He's a dum-dum. The guy is literally a dummy, totally dumb. He's not capable of having a good debate. He can only have a bad debate. It's not going to get any better. He's going to be just as bad in the second debate as he was in the first, and he'll be just as bad in his third. And I think by the time we get to the third debate, he'll be in the low 10, maybe 11, 12, 13, 14% maybe. Below 15. I don't think he'll be above 15 by the third debate. And I'm not so sure he makes it because he's got a lot of other problems that he doesn't even see coming up behind him. And they're coming from Ukraine. And his son, he's going to come back to bite him in the ass. Did any of you see the clip of Don Lemon and April Ryan arguing over Kamala Harris's blackness? That was funny. You got to watch that. It's not long. It's like a 2-minute clip, but it's Don Lemon in an argument. Not super heated, but it's certainly they're definitely annoyed with each other. There's no question about that. So Don Lemon arguing with April Ryan over how black Kamala Harris is, and she's trying to make the argument. You don't know her lineage. You don't know her lineage. Well, her mother was from India, and her dad was from Jamaica. So I think we know something about her lineage, but the point that April Ryan is trying to make is that, yeah, well, you could go back farther than that, and maybe she's African because the Africans came to Jamaica, and then they came to the U.S. She doesn't look black to me. She looks like a mixed race, and she is. India, so she's Indian and Jamaican, not African American, which is the point that Don Lemon is trying to make. But April Ryan's just not getting it. Take a look at that if you like some humor. Well, we have this top State Department official, John Hackett, who's telling Judicial Watch during his deposition that he warned the Clinton team about Hillary's emails. Hackett says he warned key Clinton aides about their failure to preserve official business emails on the Right Reverend Clinton's private server. He says they did not follow normal protocol as far as he can tell. He also says that he saw the Right Reverend Clinton using a BlackBerry, and that gave him concerns. He says that he was concerned if the BlackBerry was being used for work-related communications, and of course we now know it was, and not just her, but her entire team. She was told, don't use those BlackBerries, and she said, well, I want one for me and my staff, just like Obama's got, and they said no, and she said, fine, screw you, then we're going to use these. And that's what she did, even on foreign soil, including in Russia. We know that for a fact. And he said that this issue was never really resolved. He doesn't know if there are emails from the BlackBerry or not, but we know that she destroyed the BlackBerries and pulled out the SIM cards. And by the way, as I keep telling you, the Right Reverend Clinton's just waiting for her opportunity to pounce. In fact, her ground game has already begun, Because if you go looking, you will find, and you don't have to look too hard, you will find hashtags already out there, hashtags for Draft Hillary. Hashtag Draft Hillary. And hashtag I'm with her in 2020. And there's about a half a dozen hashtags similar to that. It's the fake Draft Hillary campaign has already began. And it's being put into motion by her operatives. Probably Cody Shear and what's his name? Blumenthal. Who we now know, thanks to Devin Nunes, were visiting the State Department regularly throughout the summer of 2016. Well, we have that idiot Barbara Streisand saying that we should remove all climate deniers from office. Climate deniers. I assume she means climate change deniers. And this is very similar to the statement that Gillibrand made where she said we need to remove pro-life judges. So they just want to start removing people. These people are, I mean, you talk about fascist, you know. I mean, if the I don't like the definition of fascist as it's used today. It doesn't really work for me. But if you just like the way the word's being thrown around, and it's being thrown around as like you're an authoritarian, totalitarian, or whatever, then this sounds like the type of things that you see in third world countries with fascist dictators, where people whose ideas do not align with yours, you censor them, or kill them, or throw them out of office, or do not allow them to serve, or do not allow them to be heard. That's what they're advocating for. Now, this idiot, Streisand, I absolutely guarantee you that if you took Streisand and all these lunatics, and even the wild-eyed commie Cortez herself, and you got about 100 of these idiots into a room, and you ask them one simple question, I bet they could not answer the question. And it's the most important question. It goes right to the issue that they talk about all the time, which is that we have the CO2 levels are too high. We have too much CO2. Too much CO2. That's what they tell us. I bet if you ask an entire room full of these idiots and these imbeciles what the CO2 level currently is, and this is not like an arbitrary number. We know this. We have instruments that test this, and scientists are constantly testing various places, what the CO2 levels are on this planet. We know what that number is, and pretty much everyone's in agreement who has an accurate instrument that's working properly. We know that the current level of CO2 is about 0.04. 4/100ths of a percent. 4/100ths of a percent. And of that 4/100ths of a percent of CO2, 97% of it is generated by the planet itself. Mostly by the vegetation, which gives off CO2. Humans only account for 3% of the 4/100ths of a percent of CO2 emissions. But these idiots are not smart enough to know this, or whatever. I don't know what it is. But these are simple numbers. And you cannot look at these numbers and say there's any type of crisis or anything else. It's just the planet being the planet. Everything's fine. Everything's normal. Okay, run out of time. Okay, so we have Sleepy Joe Biden claiming last month that he never talked with his son about the lucrative Ukrainian work. But now Hunter Biden just told the New Yorker magazine that he did in fact discuss his paid Ukrainian gas firm position with his father while his father was engaged in diplomacy in Ukraine as the vice president. Oh, this thing's only going to get worse and worse, man. This will only get worse. We have Papadopoulos saying that it will be revealed that Misfit, Downer, and Halper were part of a scandal that was pre-planned and coordinated between the CIA and the MI6. And finally, something pretty strange had happened today. I don't know if there's anything to this or what's going on, but just, something kind of strange happened. We know that Mike Pence's plane was called back. He was on his way to give a speech in New Hampshire, and they called his plane back for some emergency reasons. At about the same time, Putin canceled a very important meeting with his defense ministry. And at about the very same time that that's happening, The EU Security Council also had some sort of emergency where Russian and American leaders were pulled into urgent meetings. Huh. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.